Hello everyone, Ren here. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Has the recent release of Wuthering Waves made you question your ability in gaming? Has this ever happened to you?
Now I'm super dehydrated.
Well, fear not gamers, cause I'm here to solve all your skill issues. Watch this. Alright, so if you thought that was impressive, let me tell you that's just one part of the amazing combat that this game has to offer. So let's just get started. For simplicity's sake, we're gonna divide this video into all these sections, and let's start with the general combat and the team building. Each character in Wuthering Waves in general will have 5 abilities. First, we have the Resonance skill, which is only dictated by its cooldown. You don't have to wait for any energy, and as long as it's off the cooldown, you can use it. Then, we have Resonance Liberation. Resonance Liberation is dictated both by a cooldown and energy requirement. You fill up the Resonance Liberation energy by performing a Resonance skill. Next up, we have the Echo skill. The Echo skill you can perform as long as you have a main Echo equipped on your character. Different echoes perform different things, and once you have an echo equipped, it goes on a cooldown once you perform the echo skill. There's no energy required for this. Now we have the Forte Circuit. The Forte skill or the Forte Circuit works differently for each and every character in the game. To learn how your character uses Forte Circuit, I'll link this website in the description. You can check it out over there. Finally, we have the Intro and the Outro skill. The Intro and the Outro skill are dependent on your Concerto energy. This bar right here. Once you have the energy filled up in this bar, which you can do by attacking the enemies by any attacks or abilities, you can switch to a different character to perform the switching character's outro skill and the character that you're switching to their intro skill. Now that we understand the abilities, let's look at team building. Wuthering Waves allows a team of 3 party members. Most of the parties are set up in a very similar way. The first character is always going to be the DPS character. You always need a DPS who's going to take the field time to do as much DPS as they can. Now, for the second slot, we have the hybrid characters. There are many different types of these characters. There can be sub DPSs that can do coordinated attacks off the field with your main DPS to increase the damage. Think of characters like Yelan from Genshin. The second type of hybrid characters are utility and crowd control supports. These characters will be able to group up the enemies so you can AoE them down. Think of Venti from Genshin Impact. The last and final teammate is generally a support, a healer or a shielder for your team. Common example of this team format would be this Gian, Mortifi, Verena team comp. This is currently one of the strongest team comps that you can play in the game, and the reason being Verena is one of the best healers, then Mortifi can do coordinated attacks and also buff heavy damage from Gian. And Gian being the strongest DPS works out perfectly. Now let's talk about the actual combat of the game. We're gonna start off with swap and swap cancelling. What does swap cancelling mean? Basically, when you have a big animation in Wuthering Waves, there's a good chance that you can just cancel the entire animation by swapping to a different character. While you're swapping to the different character, your animation is still gonna go off and you're still gonna do damage on the first character. What that means is that basically you can have multiple different characters, even 3 characters, on the field at the same time. You can double or even triple your damage if you do swap cancelling. Let's see an example of swap cancelling. Encore is an amazing character to practice swap cancelling on, especially because of her E skill that takes enormous amounts of time. Encore's resonance skill puts her into this state where she starts gunning down the enemies. While she's doing it, you can swap to a different character and perform actions on them before swapping back to Encore to perform the second part of her E ability, which is a finisher move that does a lot of burst damage. Now swap cancelling doesn't just apply to resonance skill and liberation. You can literally swap cancel your entire echo. How you do it is dependent on the echo that you have. Different echoes work differently with swap cancelling, and some of them require you to do the entire animation and only cancel at the last second. Now you can use this concept to have 3 different characters on the field at the same time using swap cancelling. And if you want to learn more about swap cancelling, because there's more mechanics to it that are more complicated, I would recommend watching Tenten's video on it. He did an amazing job explaining it thoroughly. Now let's talk about dodge and dodge counters. Dodging in this game works very similarly to how it works in Dark Souls games. You dodge by using the sprint button, which is your right mouse button, or your left shift. Every successful dodge will slow the time momentarily. And if you see the time slow, that is your cue to know that you can do a dodge counter now. Now what is a dodge counter? Dodge counter is when you dodge successfully and you see the time slow, you're able to do a counterattack right after it to do a lot of damage. The counterattack damage scales with your character's basic attack, and you can go to your character page to check their scalings with dodge counters. The best tip for dodging is to not actually dodge away from the enemy, but into the enemy. So right when you dodge, you have a moment to hit them back with your dodge counters. Now let's talk about parrying, or as known in this game, counterattacks. Most enemies in Wuthering Waves has something called a posture bar, or in this game, vibration strength. If you manage to successfully parry an enemy, you deplete their posture bar, and when fully depleted, the enemy goes into a staggered state where they can't move. This is generally a 5 to 10 second window where you want to do as much uninterrupted damage as possible. Not every enemy is parryable, and the cue to know if it's a parryable attack is the 2 circles. When these 2 circles align, you can do your parry input, which in most cases is your basic attack button, or just a simple left click. Now keep in mind that only melee characters can actually parry. That means no parrying on rectifier or pistol users. Another thing to note is that you can't parry every attack, but you can dodge them. Now why do we need to parry then? It's because parry depletes the posture of the enemy significantly faster and results in much higher DPS, because once you deplete their posture bar, they go into the staggered state. Now remember when I said rectifier users can't parry? Well, that was kind of a lie. I mentioned you can parry with basic attacks, but it's also possible to parry with your skills. For example, your resonance skill, or even your echo skill. It's also possible to parry with a plunge attack on some characters, and on other characters, their heavy attack. For example, you can parry with Verina's heavy or charge attack. Now remember, just because you can do it doesn't mean it's recommended, because skills have much higher cooldown and heavy attacks cost stamina, so it's much easier to parry with basic attacks. But this is a way you can parry on kata. Rectifier users. You can also swap to a different melee character to do the parry and swap back to your DPS as an alternative as well. Now you might be wondering, what if I have skill issue and can't parry for shit, Ren? What if I can't parry at all? Well, I have some good news for you. We have certain characters in the game that I call Parry Cheaters. These characters attack so fast that you have a very high chance to accidentally parry the enemy. Now I won't judge you, but if you want to know, Jian, Dungeon, and the main character can all parry relatively reliably, but I saw the highest success rate with Jian. You can literally spam basics with him and smash your face on the keyboard and still parry every hit. But remember, you still have to dodge certain attacks that are not parryable. Now here's some more basic tips that can help you on your way. You can permanently slow down time by pressing tab. You don't actually have to dodge or parry every hit either. Some attacks you can just run away from, and once the enemy has already initiated their attack, you will be fine. Now applying some of these techniques, let's fight an enemy. Before you guys go, I just want to say thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you learned something from it. I hope you liked the video. And if you did, leave a subscribe. That'll be really helpful to me. Thank you very much. See you next time.